Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tosh Customs, and today we'll be taking a look at my custom, Oni Ronin. I've been calling him the Demon Ronin too. Um, this has been a really exciting journey through the course of designing this character. It actually started as a completely different idea with me and the customer, and then it just sort of evolved and changed into what we have now, and I'm really excited to show it off to you. But before we dive into this guy right here, I do have a couple announcements. One, this will probably be the last review at my current place of residence. I got an engineering job recently, and so I will be moving out of my parents' house where I've been my entire life, and I will be moving into an apartment, so I'm closer to work. With that, the state of my work setup in terms of customizing the workshop, um, I need to figure out what that looks like inside an apartment, and so for the remaining 4 or 5 of my commissions that I'm still working on, I might be taking like a month and a half break as I'm just sort of moving, transitioning into the job, as well as figuring out how I'm going to sort of divide up the apartment space. And then on top of that, I will be running a sort of Halloween special during the month of October because I'm anticipating the move and stuff like that. I'm not going to have my full setup. So instead, I'm going to be running some print orders again. So that will include some new Halloween themed prints, but it will also include some past fan favorite prints that I want to make available to you guys. So I'll be running both of those. And then I will also be trying to sell off a lot of my mint on card collection. Maybe I'll make a YouTube video showing off what I have, or I'll just post it on Instagram. But anyways, if you guys aren't on the Instagram, if you don't follow me there, you really should, because I think I still have some pretty rare picks back from a couple years ago. So I don't know what the value is on them now, but my plan is to sell them for essentially what I bought them for and not really try to like make money, but just get them out of my closet. Essentially, I just want them gone, and so hopefully you'll be able to pick up something on the harder to find side for a good price. So that's my goal with that. But I wanted to get a couple of those announcements out of the way before we actually dive into the video, so now you guys know about that. Let's talk about the Oni, or the Demon Ronin, whatever we want to call him. I've been throwing around a bunch of different names, but essentially the idea is that a Ronin is a samurai without his master, a samurai who has lost his, warlord in battle or through death, something like that, and so they become this wandering warrior now. And so the idea of having him as an Oni is that they both died in battle, but now his spirit wanders searching for his master. And so we have this vengeful spirit now of this samurai, come to life, still on the hunt. And so with that, we will take a look at the accessories and then dive into, if I can get this rope dart out of his hand, and then dive into the actual design of the character itself, because I think it's pretty complex, and a lot of it I made myself in terms of modeling the parts. So that's really exciting. So setting him off to the side. Sorry, I'm trying to get this. There we go. Setting him off to the side there. I just had to put him in a nice safe place. We'll talk about the weapons first, and then we'll dive into the heads. And so first of all, right here, let me get this autofocus out of the way. First of all, right here, we have what I'm calling his demon blade. I think it's Soul Calibur that has a sword also with an eye on it. And so I was a little bit inspired by that. But I modeled, this sword is one of actually the first things I ever modeled. I wanted to make like an alien blade. At the time, I was thinking sort of Borderlands-esque. If you guys are familiar with that franchise, you know that Borderlands has guns with like alien tech on it. And so my idea was like a sword with like some kind of alien organic tech on it. And so I ended up making like this half jaw with some teeth and like a little eyeball. I was originally thinking it might be a heart, but in this case, I painted it into an eyeball. And so that was sort of my thought process behind it. And so I obviously, you've never seen this sword before because I never actually turned it into an accessory for any figure. I just didn't have a character that fit this design. And so finally looking at the Demon Ronin, I was like, holy cow, like a flesh organic blade would be really, really cool. So I ended up pulling this thing back out. I wrapped the grip in this pleather style piece. There is bone texture and it actually is painted all the way down, but the issue was there was just a little bit of paint rub just with how the hand was gripping against the varnish. I did varnish this whole thing and it was still um, it just was still sort of scuffing. And so with that, I just wrapped it in some pleather, glued it all down. And then as you can see right here, we have this really fantastic sort of milky eye. And then you have this nice gunmetal blade with some silver dry brushing along the edge. So I think that looks pretty good. It is pretty thin. It does have some flex to it though. It has a little wibbly wobbly without snapping, but obviously don't test it. It's not made out of a flexible resin. It's just flexible because it's a little bit thinner. But this is generally a more hard type resin. But yeah, this took a lot of layers, and something you'll notice throughout this character, just throughout the whole design, is just to get sort of those fleshy reds and pinks. It's a lot of layering and it's a lot of red washes, and so you get some really nice like bone to more pink tones in the deep areas, and then obviously some much deeper reds. And so super fun design, and I think that sort of melding between more of flesh and bone right there looks really good along the blade, or I guess along like the hilt. Moving on to our first head, we will take a look at the head that I have not modeled. This actually was from a different commission that I had planned, and the ninja head just didn't end up working out. And so I've had this ninja head in my fodder box for probably on the closer end of maybe 8 months to a year now. And so it's been sitting there. I haven't revisited it, and so I was like, okay, let's turn this into a ninja head for this guy. And honestly, the nice part is now I can actually model it. So if I ever need to make another one of these, I can probably just sculpt it myself. Maybe not with as much wrinkle detail. I'm not really as good with the fabrics yet, but I'll definitely be able to learn. But this is something that's totally like attainable now, which is cool. So, and that's definitely helped with my production cost in terms of it's a little bit more of a time investment to print parts, but then I have the reproducibility of it versus having to like constantly buy a new head every time I run out of one. So this is really cool. So we have this ninja head here, and as you can see, he's once again sort of got that bony, fleshy paint around the eyes, and his eyes are whited out. This is more of like his undead ninja look right here. And so that's just that. Everything's just painted in a semi-gloss black, and then you got those really wicked eyes and that angry expression right there. So there we go. So now coming to the two heads that I have designed, we'll start with the unmasked version first. Once again, a Ronin is a samurai, and so even though I included a ninja head, the ninja head still looks great on the body, as you guys will see. But obviously I needed something to fit with that Ronin theme right here. And so what we have here is this sort of um, Oni samurai helmet. As you can see right here, I have the tiered layers of the helmet plates running back, but as you can see, there's some nice, really like bone flaring out detail. You got all these little jagged edges, and all that's picked out in a nice bone color, and it fades into this brownish red tone up along the side. Everything's done in a gloss varnish, so you get a really nice sort of wet sheen to everything. And then coming around to the front here, nose cavity is done in black. You can see like these protruding cheekbones. I've actually highlighted in a little bit of gold. You can see the sparkle there. And then along these eye crests right here, you have more gold. And then sort of where the samurai helmet, where the little, I don't know what they're called, but essentially the little wings flare out of the helmet there, that has also been done in gold, but it still keeps that similar bone texture and shape to it. And then coming down to the jaw here, you can see some nice deep red, really wet sinews around the sides of the cheeks there, right in there. Oops, sorry, camera shake. And then got some really nice pearly whites, and then some more bone dry brushing around the bottom of the jaw there. So really cool. So this is the unmasked version. And the goal for this was to sort of mix that hard plate feel, some hard bone feel with some more soft muscle tones, essentially. And so sculpting that, I was already thinking about how I was going to paint it in the process. So that I was like, okay, I want bone edges here. I need certain things to look a little bit more jagged and sharp, and then other areas to be very, very sinewy on the face. And so I think all those details are coming through the camera. It's quite a detailed sculpt, honestly. And so I'm really glad that my printer was able to accomplish all the definition that I was putting in. So with that, we will now look at the masked head sculpt. And so, a lot of samurai helmets, they have sort of that gold or some sort of faceplate, usually like a frown or a screaming face that they put over the front there. And so for mine, I didn't want to run with that. I felt like the smile was already sort of expressive enough, and so instead I wanted a battle mask that actually covers his face and sort of falls in line with more of that crested design on the front plate right there. So once again, you can see that the nose cavity is done in black, and this time it's essentially the same head sculpt, except we have this jade green ring in the top there versus the other one that's empty. And then we have this new front mask piece. So you can see that you have some teeth done in this bone color right up against that top edge, some 4 teeth or tusks right up there. And then you have this new gold faceplate right here. And so you're sort of creating this diamond. You have these angles coming up here, and then these angles coming down here. And so it's it's accentuating the edges of the cheekbones and sort of that wide feel, but then it's tapering off on both ends so that the whole head doesn't feel too chunky. It's just once again sort of the directions that you're using in your models. If you're 3D modeling or if you're hand sculpting, shape and direction of the eye is always important. And so this still feels like it has a very sort of sinister chin because everything is tapering down towards the center, even though obviously it's way chunkier than the chin we have here. As you can see with this gold though, it's not all gold. You can see some nice sort of black gray weathering I've done over the top, and so a lot of these edges aren't actually fully gold. You have some muted tones in there as well to get some weathering across. And then other than that, the paint is exactly the same. I painted these at the same time, so very similar paint effects on both. So those are the heads and the sword out of the way. The other thing I have is this jade dagger right here. This was pulled off the Snake Eyes movie figure. I cut off the hand guard here so it can slip into his hand. And then the blade is originally this like silver with some black wash in it. I did jade green with a little black wash in it instead. And so just like we have the jade green here, and you'll see a lot more of this jade green in the rest of the costume design. So I figured maybe he has some kind of spirit blade or something. And I really like all the engraving in here. It's very, very decorative. And so having this in a jade green just feels right. That's really it. Last but not least, we have his rope dart. This is just done in a wire so that it's posable, and I currently just have it sort of bundled up so it can just hang loose in his hand as you saw earlier. But obviously in some pictures on Instagram when I post this guy, he'll have it in more of like a throwing pose, sort of like Scorpion from Mortal Kombat, stuff like that. So I felt like the rope dart was a nice little addition to the character as well. So setting everything aside, there is one more accessory, but I do have it attached to the figure, which is his katana. This is also from the movie Snake Eyes figure. I painted the scabbard all black, whereas it used to be black with gold. And then the sword I have actually left completely the same. I've made no changes to the sword because I think the paint is really crisp on it. That gold, the gold on the base, the semi-gloss black plastic, everything's really good. And so just for the more traditional samurai feel, he has the sword on his side right there. All right, so let's pop a head on. We'll pop the ninja head on first. So here we go. We have our Oni, putting the other two heads to the side. So what is the base of this character? The base of this character is actually the Mezco Netflix Daredevil. We still have these combat boots on, and unfortunately, there were just no other boot replacements that I had in stock in my fodder or that I could find. And so the customer and I just said we had to make do. But honestly, when you're looking at the total of this guy, it doesn't look too bad. I did my best to sort of cover up the boots and make them feel as a part of the costume as possible, as coherent as possible. And I really don't think it looks too bad. You know, some ninja shoes would be nice, but the Gomez ninja shoes are too small. And then if you're saying use something like the Lone Roach is still too small. And Mezco, the Wolverine, the Samurai Wolverine, those might fit, but it's incredibly hard to get a pair of those. And the joint, the way it's made up, isn't also necessarily the same compared to the way the boot design is. And so it would be hard adaptation or just way too expensive of an option. So we had to make do. We stuck with the combat boots. But we have the Netflix Daredevil internal. So he's a mid-size figure. He's going to be a little bit taller than some of your older Mezco builds, but still shorter than like the Blade body, for instance. Let's see. Let me bring a Batman. Whoop. Let me bring a Batman in for scale, just in case. Sorry, I'm not gonna cut right here. I'm just gonna keep talking as I walk away and as I come back. Alrighty. So here we have my custom Batman with his purple cape. As you can see, he stands just a little bit shorter than Batman. You know, obviously he's got the shoulder pads, but you can see he's just a little bit shorter than Batman right here in terms of the shoulder height. But still definitely a mid-sized character, whereas the Batman is generally one of the larger bucks that Mezco has. So then for the undersuit, we have this green ninja robe that I bought off of eBay. I believe I got it from GPS Lot. And so it came with the sort of the gi undershirt, the gi pants with these tapered legs. Not these leg wraps, but as you can see right here, there's actually this elastic material that goes around the lower legs. And so we have that elastic material down there. And then it also came with like an outer coat, but I've foregone using the outer coat because it added too many layers to the body. But it was a 3-piece with then some of these like elastic straps that you could use to bind the belt or bind some hand wrap, stuff like that. So I've proceeded to use one of them, cut them in half and use them as tassels off the sides of the shoulder pads there. And then another one is being used to help cinch the waist right there. The tapered elastic down here, because of the combat boot and how far the combat boot goes up, I did alter the elastic a little bit and cut it a little bit shorter so that the boot would fit around it. And then just to sort of hide all of the bootlace detail, I did take some faux leather here, wrap it around the legs, added our little shin guard, our little bony shin guard pieces, as well as just did some little rune designs on here. None of these really mean anything. I was looking at Japanese and some other Asian languages and then just sort of free-handed some designs on here. It's not supposed to be any language in particular. This guy's back from the dead. Who knows what speak it is? So we have that. So that's our internals. I also took part of a Kylo Ren cape and I turned it into a scarf here, and so I wrapped it around the neck and tucked it in there. And I did swap out the neck from Daredevil to a blade neck. It's the same exact length, but it doesn't have all the textured design that the Netflix Daredevil head has. And so it just didn't look tactical and modern, which was good. So we have that, and it's wrapped around the neck right there. And then also I used part of the Kylo Ren cape to create this little sort of off-the-shoulder flare piece, just to add a little bit extra detail onto the back there. As you can see it right there as well. So that is essentially the undersuit. So now let's talk about the stuff I have 3D modeled on this guy. We already talked about the little shin pads, and I do want to come back to them a little bit later. But I have also printed these shoulder pads right here, the chest plate, and the little waist skirt armor piece as well. So in total, we have the sword that's 3D printed, so 1 piece, masked head 2, unmasked head 3, both shoulders, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this guy has 9 pieces of custom model plating. Obviously, a couple of these are duplicates, but all the hard armor on this guy is essentially 3D printed. The hands we are using are standard Mezco Gomez hands. There's some nice gloved pieces, and they actually fit this design really well. And then these sort of like bamboo plank armor pieces are from articulated icons. So that's where everything has been sourced from. And so let's talk about some of the inspiration for the model design here. So when I was early designing it, I knew that I wanted to do some sort of modified shoulder pad. I knew I needed a chest piece, and I was debating a waist piece because generally samurais just have really thick belts. But I was like, my original idea was it would be cool if the chest plate and the waist plate sort of created a mouth. Like we had teeth down here, and then we'd have like a wider of teeth up here. And I was originally going to run with a different chest piece than this. But what I figured was that the shape of it would make the body feel too wide, and he wouldn't feel as fast. And samurai armor tends to feel very heavy. It's very difficult to run. They have a lot of layers on. And so my question was, how do I make this guy still have that, sort of supernatural, mythical look to him? But I want him to be able to move. I don't want him to feel like this lumbering guy being weighed down by a bunch of like bone armor. But I want him to have some movement. So instead, I still kept the teeth there, and that's just more aesthetic now. And instead, I went with this piece that sort of tapers down, sort of has that triangle flare down to the abdomen there. So, if you're talking about protection, yeah, it's a little bit less protection, maybe around some of the vital organs, but this guy's undead. He doesn't need his organs anyways. So, there we go for that. Some particular inspiration for these for these shoulder pads. I knew that I wanted them big enough to cover around the front. I didn't want the normal samurai, just like sort of rectangular pad on the shoulders. I wanted something that was a lot larger and wider. And so my inspiration for this was actually the Kako demon from Doom. I really liked his one eye, and I liked his little horns and all that kind of stuff. And so this shape, just when I was modeling it, the shape really resembled that sort of circular blob of the Kako demon. So it was a really easy design choice. So definitely some nods there. Obviously, it's not like a one-to-one take on him, but fun little nod. We have some more jade green in the eye there. And then as you can see, the teeth are painted in this nice bone, as well as these little horns here. And then we have some gold around the shoulders and some gold flare extra on these horns that are curving up. The front piece here, no real inspiration. I was really just trying to figure out what design would fill the space I needed, and so these teeth do a really nice job of tapering down. He's got some little cheek horn pieces there, and then some horns that are running up from the main eye, and then some extra scaly bits right there. As you can see, there's a lot of nice red washes in there, and so you can see all that sculpted texture detail in between those scales. And even here, you can see some bone dry brushing with some deeper reds in the crevices there. And so just to pick out all those details. Coming down here, obviously we talked about the upper teeth being some sort of mouth, but then we have this little skull motif right here, some extra gold teeth, and you can see once again some more bone detailing running across there. And then finally coming down to these knee pads, the knee pads and the chest plate were made at the same time, and so you can see a little bit of resemblance here. We got these like nice long sharp teeth, nice long sharp teeth, and once again coming down here, some nice long sharp teeth at the bottom there. And so you got some gold highlights around sort of those crowned horns at the top, a little bit of gold on those cheekbones essentially. And then what you have right here is these cute little screaming faces on the sides of the knee pads. That seems a little creepy, but I think they're kind of cute. They're these little faces on either side. And so I did pick those out with a little bit of a black wash so that you could see them, but you have little fun details right there. So that's a nice little touch into the knee pads. You got them going, ah! So that's most of the armor inspiration right there. And so in terms of assembly, I added these pleather pieces up on top of the shoulders, and as you can see, right in there, there's an elastic band that is glued under the pleather piece, which is then glued to the shoulder pad, so that the shoulder pad is able to move with the arm, and it will flex as I rotate the shoulder forward and stuff like that. But I don't have any elastic exposed, and instead the pleather adds some nice texture to break up the green robe. On top of that, once again, I have these elastic tassel pieces that are glued to the shoulder pads, and that has nothing to do with historical accuracy or relevance. It's just for extra flair, and I think they look great. They're sort of disappearing in the camera there, but you can see them. Now, I think the other big cool thing here is the samurai leg armor. So originally, this guy didn't have any of the leg armor. He was originally just this front skirt piece and just the shoulders and the chest and like the leg wraps. And so his legs, as the customer pointed out, felt very ninja. They felt very bare because it was just the green pants down there. And so then I ended up hopping on Google Images again, and I was looking around, I was searching, and I was realizing a consistent thing was the samurai had these like big plates of armor on their legs, obviously to save them from cuts. Generally, they were made out of bamboo or some other material, and so it's like, okay, that is a very identifiable piece of traditional samurai garb. And so then I was sitting there asking myself, okay, how do I make this come to life? I don't have any fodder that I can use to recycle for these. I don't have anything from Articulated Icons or from Marvel Legends, so I was like, okay, that's out the window. Then I was like, I could model it, but modeling it would mean that it's in this same hard resin material, which for legs, if they're trying to flex, if he's trying to kick, if he's trying to kick out, any sort of that stuff, he's going to have some trouble because it's going to be this hard plate. And so either the hard plate will limit the articulation, or the hard plate will just move out at like this straight flat angle, and you don't want it just sitting out straight. So instead what I did was I cut all these pleather pieces, I cut them into squares. So I folded a cape, this pleather cape, like 8 times, and then I cut a square out, and so I had all these squares here. And then what I did was I layered them evenly, and then I hand painted all these gold lines with the little sort of like brace notches on them. And so as you can see here, they're actually tiered, and so they have some depth to them along with the paint. And so now they bend nicely, they sort of form and shape around him as he poses. And so it fits the design a lot more. It gives the character a lot more flexibility while still having a very, very authentic look, which is pretty cool. And I guess you could just have them come out straight, but that wouldn't look great. I think the bend works a little bit better for posing, and feels a little bit better when holding him. You don't have to worry about constantly crunching down these pieces as you're trying to move the legs, especially if they were like a hard resin. You'd probably deal with cracking or paint chipping over time, just with the arms knocking against stuff or the sword shifting around. So this way works out really well. So I hand painted the gold on the plates, and then I also dry brushed some red in there so that the color combination was very similar to the braces or to these shin wraps, with the black and red design there. So we have that. On the skirt piece here, we have it tattered. I cut some holes and some damage, some tattering around the bottom there for the skirt piece. And then also you can see we have some red and brown dry brushing onto these pants. I wanted him to feel very worn, as though he's seen battle, and so you can see a lot of that wear and tear along his pants there. Likewise, we have some nice brown dry brushing, some nice dirt on the boots. So you can see that you can see the black there, and you can see more of the brown splattering. So he's definitely got some mud in there. He's been running around. He's been on the battlefield a lot. So I'm trying to think, is there any other details I want to talk about here? Oh, yeah, we did already talk about the scarf. So I think that's everything. He's just an incredibly, incredibly detailed model, and I'm really, really happy with how he turned out. We already displayed him with the rope dart, so I'm going to take off his hand. I'm going to get him posed up here. Maybe in sort of like a classic squatting stance. Just like so. And then let's put the sword into his hand here. Gotta open that up. Slide that in, just like so. Check that out. That right there. His sword is so big, it's like falling out of frame. There we go, that looks pretty good. And then, ooh, his sword's too big, it puts him off balance. And then what we'll do is we'll put that jade dagger in his hand as well. And there you go. That is the Oni, the Demon Ronin, the Wandering Samurai, the Vengeful Spirit, if he can stand. I'm trying to do this live, which is the issue. I should have just taken my time to pose him and pause the video and come back, but hey, it is what it is. We're gonna get this. Come on, buddy. His sword's too big, honestly, but I really like it because it feels, it reminds me a little bit of Guts. Like Guts' giant blade, and I like that, especially for a fantasy character, like having, especially for like a fantasy, you know, sort of mythical supernatural character, having just an obnoxiously large sword just feels right, you know, because they can wield it. They have inhuman amounts of strength there. There we go. Now we got him posed up and I can end this video. So thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really, really like this guy. I think he's so, so cool. I just realized I didn't point out the jade green in the chest. And there's also some jade green in the little knees there. So continued with the jade green from the helmet to the shoulders to the chest to the knees. So a consistent look right there. But yeah, thank you all for watching this video. I appreciate all your guys' support. Once again, I will have some stuff up for sale in September to free up my collection, as well as be doing some prints in October, which is honestly just content for October while I'm moving and stuff like that. So expect those things in the future. If you don't follow me on Instagram already, my username is Tosh_customs on Instagram. My name will be in the description of this video as well, so please give me a follow there if you want to see more of my current work, if you want to know when commissions are opening, or just sort of keep up with how I'm doing. That's a good place to do it. So thank you all for watching, and hopefully this brought some inspiration for some interesting original designs for you guys. So comment below if there's anything cool you learned or anything cool you want to see, and I will catch you all